Okay, welcome everybody to Justice Serve TV. Michael Bryant here.
Linda Kenny Bodden here, and I want to tell you that Michael Bryant was in New York all day. I just have to tell you that because he rushed back to get to this show so that we could tell you all about the YSL case and, more importantly, about the Penny case that he was in the courtroom for all day. And he just sat in that chair and look at him, calm, cool, collected,
Right.
just like a trial attorney.
Heavily medicated.
Yeah. No, I doubt that. Anyhow, all right. So, Michael, while you were gone, I handled the YSL again. All right, I wanted to watch our friend Doug Weinstein. We had a very casual day. At one point, I said, Doozy, producer, right? Our producer, he's leaning back in the chair like this. He's got I think it's a Coke or something, and he's just drinking it casually. It was not a heavy lifting day for him. I don't think it was a heavy lifting day for anyone. So who was on the stand today? They brought one of the previous witnesses back on, but no reason for that. So then they brought in the detective. Okay. And you know who she is. And her name is.
I know it's Marissa Viterini, Viviteca, Biblioteca. I can never remember it. I have a mental block about it. I'm not sure why.
I know. The reason why you do is because you can't see her.
If I can't see you, I don't care what your name is. What is it? What is her name again?
Good thing. What is her name again? Oh, you know what? Viverito.
Viverito. There you go. Okay. Is it Marissa or Melissa or?
I don't know. I don't know the first name. They don't give the first name. They give the first of all. They go M. Because they go M. And of course, you can look. It's ridiculous. You can look it up on the internet, right?
Of course. And she's appeared before in pieces of evidence in this trial. So what is her story? A little prima donna. Ooh, I couldn't possibly be seen on camera. And it may sound sexist, but she's kind of attractive. So what's the deal? What is she concerned about?
Yeah, I don't know. Even Tubi is chiming in here.
Tubi's upset about it.
Tubi's upset about it. Tubi is the standard poodle in this house. To be or not to be.
Marissa. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Linda Robinson. Marissa. Okay.
Yeah, Marissa. Anyhow, so she's been on the stand all day. She is not finished yet. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her background. She's really an armchair gang detective. Now, that's not putting her down because, as you remember, when we went to get Osama bin Laden, the woman who had been following all texts and all sorts of stuff was able to figure out where he was. So it's very important to have that kind of information that you can gather and you can glean facts from. The problem is that what you're gleaning from it in this case is a lot different than where Osama bin Laden was, okay, when we set out to go get him. And what are they gleaning, all right? What is she gleaning? It's like your teeth, gleaning, okay? All right. Their jury is showing pictures of Big and Mac with a Young Thug, okay? All right, well, they're showing them now. Young Thug is not even... It was
Anybody
not even
still in this case.
No. So he knew people in the hood. Okay. And then there was this was really great. She got in another text message that we've heard before, allegedly as an overt act for the RICO conspiracy for the two that are left in this case. Now, what was it? Music producer Turbo was robbed. And Young Thug, Jeffrey Williams, told Huey, who's allegedly was the robber, to take back or he's going to die. All right, take back the jewelry. Give it back to him. Now, that's the first time I've ever heard a gang member, the head of a gang, say, take back that Richard Millet watch, okay, or whatever the jewelry was. He probably said, yeah, of course you're going to die. You're going to get killed by somebody, whatever. You rob somebody in a gang, anything. Of course you're going to get killed. The state argues that telling someone to return stolen property furthers the illegal conspiracy. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
So they're not gaining anything. They're not gaining anything from the gang activity. Yeah. They're like Robin Hood. That's it.
Yes.
They're more like Robin Hood. They're just taking from the rich and then spreading it out to the poor. Okay.
Missy Mayhem. Our Missy became a YouTube member. We have memberships available.
Congratulations, and thank you for doing that.
I can. And all of you should hopefully follow suit. We'll try to talk about it a little bit on the show. But I want to get into Judge Whittaker. This was the best part. Judge Whittaker two times warned Viverito to stop adding her unsolicited opinions and commentary to her answer. Just answer the question. Yes, no, maybe, whatever it is, whatever the question is, okay? And that was having to do text messages to get payment in exchange for hurting Lucci, okay, which we heard about the other day, being strip text messages, which I have here, okay? I even wrote down, okay, woo. All right, she warned us, like Daniels is what I actually wrote. Remember Daniels? No, you don't, because he was kicked off the stand because he was inserting himself into the trial. Recall that detective who couldn't even finish?
What's all that red stuff there? Is that a graph or something, or what is it?
These are the text messages. And then she's pointing out the ones that the prosecutor, how am I going to get this way? You can't really see it. That was probably.
No, I can't see it. It just looks like a red blob.
Yeah,
might be your shopping list or something.
No, my shopping list would be no, it'd be a lot bigger than this actually. Okay, it should not be talking on the phone right now. Anyways, now what did that lead into? That led into her gleaning as an expert in gangs. That if anyone's talking on FaceTime, now all of you pick up your iPhones, right? It was Dennis, not Daniels. Thank you. I knew it was a D word. He's out of my mind. He's out of my mind because he was like gone, right?
Yeah, you remember Dennis? I remember. He's the guy that it was. He shall never be heard from again. That's that guy.
That's what we have. So pick up your phone and go to FaceTime, right? You go to your FaceTime. Right now, my FaceTime is off, right? But if I call you right now, okay, or I call anybody, if I call Doozy, if I call you, if I call my husband, which I could possibly do on FaceTime right now, I would be considered, it'd be like a gang activity because gang members like to use FaceTime. And they specifically I'll tell you, this is the testimony. They specifically like to use FaceTime when there's something relating to a gang. For instance, Shannon Stillwell's post had a post of grief after Mac got killed, right? McMillan got killed. And he said, I can hear Mac now still playing, goddamn big, we let them suckers get us shit where. And then she read TF, which stands for the fuck, okay? Where the fuck boo at? Okay, she read it in court. She said, that stands for the fuck. Like, that's going to get her, like, an award for being a gang member expert because WTF, every time I know what the, it usually stands for that, right? I mean, I kind of know that. And so he expressed his grief, and then he had a FaceTime call. And because he had the FaceTime call, that means he was involved in the Drinks murder.
Let me get this right. That's because if you know that the police might be tapping your phone or somehow surveilling you, if you use FaceTime or a burner phone, you're not going to be subject to that search.
Right. It doesn't come up.
So that means you automatically then are a gang member.
Right. Automatically are a gang member. Right. Exactly. Okay. And then they shared other members of YSL members' reaction to the deaths of Little D, Monk Trunk, and Big. And I just pointed out because we didn't even put these on screenshots because they're not really worth the time, right? Because it's kind of like admitted now that YSL may be a gang, right? Because in the pleas, some of the members who took pleas kind of said it. So it's kind of like going on in the gang, YSL, the gang, YFN, the gang, whatever gangs. I think I sent you all the gangs at one point. I can't even remember them that she was going through. But so that they all had like little parts of real estate. And so there were some objections to that, like, it was in YSL gang territory. Objection, But Viverito does like to introduce things that the defense is not aware of. The gas station issue was another one. Where people were saying, thank you, Africa, at the BP, right? So if there's a whiteout at the BP, right, that means that really it was YSL's gang and you shouldn't be there. And then there was some objections to that, but she does like to be in the spotlight. Now that doesn't mean,
just kind of cocky, isn't she? Kind of arrogant.
Yeah, I thought so too.
A little Miss Know-It-All.
And you know what was missing from it all? We had some stuff on Shannon Stillwell, right, in terms of whether or not he was on FaceTime or because the state's theory is that he committed the Drinks murder as retribution for the murders of two people, including McMillan, right? So that's the state's theory of the case. So, but there was one thing that was really missing, because even though we had some testimony about Shannon Stillwell, what was missing? Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. Okay. There's two defendants left.
Any connection to those two defendants?
Well, let's take one in particular. You never heard the name of Yak. Connie, at least all day when I was meant here. I mean, I never heard Connie mentioned once, which is why probably Doug is sitting there, drinking his soda.
It looks like he's. It looks like Diamante is his co-counsel. They're there. They share notes. They're looking at stuff. I don't know what they're looking at. Maybe it's germane to the case. Maybe it's sports. I don't know.
They had a cute. I sent it to you.
I saw that,
and I don't remember who it is to give credit to. Somebody posted it, and they both listened and shrug and laughed at the same time, like they were kind of like father son. You're right. It was. It's Pretty Eyes says it just seemed like a bunch of trolling between YSL and YFN to me, but I'm no expert. Yeah, there was a lot of trolling because, and the other thing is, she was an expert by going to social media. So she looks at the social media accounts after there's incidents, right? Supposedly all these guys are putting this stuff, Michael, on social media, right? And so that to her means that they're announcing that they're going to have retribution. Well, it seems to me that if you're going to commit a murder, the last thing you want to do is announce it on Instagram.
I mean, I admit in social media, those who have done bad things are pretty stupid about it sometimes. You'll see postings that are so incriminating. I don't know if I'd go as far as murder, but you see stuff posted as if people think it's okay if I post it. It may be a weird thing to do, but if I post it and I get likes, then therefore maybe that's a get out of jail free card. So I do admit there's stuff on social media that is very incriminating. Murder, I don't know about that.
Yeah, so that was basically where we left it. But the day started with some big news out of Fulton County. And I don't know if the defense can use this anyway. And it started with the release of the Justice Department. You remember them? At least they're still Justice Department right now.
I was just reading bittersweet saying, I hate this trial. This is, and yet you're watching it. Am I right? So it's some sort of weird codependence that people have. Because it's such a frustrating trial on a factual level, on a prosecutorial level, on a justice level. You just, it's like hating somebody in a soap opera. You just hate that person, and but you can't tear yourself away. Okay, I'm sorry.
You watch soap operas?
Well, I used to back in the day when I was back in the radio days. I used to do a thing called what did I call it? As the Something Turns, and I would do a synopsis of the hottest soap operas, like every week. Just read it out with the little, sappy kind of music underneath. I don't know that I ever really watched any of them, but I read all of these updates and shared those with my radio listeners. Okay, anyway.
I love you. Keep interrupting, because one of the things that I want to get your opinion on was the day started out with something that wasn't in the trial, but that's kind of been alluded to. And we've alluded to it here, was the Justice Department released a report and said the conditions in the Atlanta County Jail and the Fulton County Jail, and that's Rice, as we've heard it, right?
Yeah.
Violate constitutional and statutory rights of people incarcerated. And that's just a milquetoast line, right? Killings, stabbings, and assaults are common. Contraband is pervasive. And I'm reading from The Guardian right now, which has the best article on it. Lethal violence goes uninvestigated and is directly abetted by the jail staff. Drug use is common. 91-page report. And it began when they found a gruesome death of LaShawn Thompson in September 2022, who made national headlines. He suffered from mental illness, right? Covered in insects in his own ways, with his face down on the cell toilet. And the coroner described Thompson as neglected to death. And he was one of the many. It's a horrendous report. We really should try to post it somewhere at some point so people could read it. But in the meantime, if you Google The Guardian and Google Fulton County Jail and Justice Department, you will come up with this article: 1,000 assaults in 1 year, 314 stabbings. So Lucci's stabbing, it may not have been so unusual. 314 stabbings. So what I want to get your opinion on, if the defense who's left had this, to question people before they got on the stand about taking pleas, would it have made a difference? Because there was an argument at some point that people just wanted to get out of Rice County. And I think Little Woody's talked about it.
Of course.
Talk to us.
So what's your question again?
So if the defense had this report, this Department of Justice report, which comes out now, when they were questioning people like Little Woody to give credibility to the fact that he would say anything not to go to Rice, to get out of Rice, do you think that there's some kind of mistrial motion or some way the defense can get that in now?
Boy,
for the two left.
Let me think that through, because obviously it's very prejudicial. Is there any real probative nature? I mean, remember, we're talking after the fact. certainly there's probative nature as to what led to the plea deals and the
Right.
negotiation. But
Right.
as to those defendants still in trial, I think it's irrelevant. I don't think there's enough probative value for that to be an issue. That's just my take on it.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? It is interesting.
I think it's horrific, and we've dabbled with this Rice jail situation. We'd like to get into it more deeply, because when I describe Rice jail, I say, most people know of Rikers here in New York.
Right.
Also, not a great place. I say, from what I hear, compared to Rikers, Rikers is the Ritz compared to Rice Street.
And if we're talking,
and if you've got people who are there imprisoned, can't get out on bond, which is another story that we could get into about the reason they weren't released on bond for these alleged crimes, then it's a hammer. You're pounding on these guys. We know that Young Thug, basically Jeffrey Williams, took whatever deal he could get. He was willing to throw himself on the mercy of the court to get out of Rice Street. So that's just wrong. I mean, first of all, that they're in there without bond for the crimes for which they've been accused, that's wrong. But then to just continually deny that bond and make them suffer, they're innocent dudes. They're not convicted of anything.
Now, let's stop you right there, because you're innocent dudes. Let me put your lawyer's hat right on. Now, Lucci, we're talking about. Remember, he was stabbed in the trial, right? You're right. And so in May 2023, an assailant dug a hole through a shower wall to enter an incarcerated person's housing zone and stabbed him. Later that month, a fight broke out between 26 people on 2 different zones, and an incarcerated person told officers that he was lying on his bed when an assailant came through a hole near a toilet via a pipe chase and stabbed him. So if you're charging our RICO defendants, right, with facilitating a stabbing or anything like that, maybe you should look at the jail, because they also said, this is interesting, drug use range from marijuana to ecstasy. Investigators noted how prisoners use strips, papers soaked in chemicals, and then dried and smoked for a narcotic effect. And a lot of time, security and medical staff have reported getting contact high from breathing the air, but no one seems to do anything about it. So is Fulton County, should they have been a defendant in this RICO case, this basket of crimes that's facilitated?
Yeah, I mean, they've got their own issues as a separate. I don't think they can be lumped into this, but there should be some civil rights cases against that institution, and I think the defendants could be many, including as far up as Fani, not because she runs the jail, obviously, but she is responsible for denying the bond for those that are stuck in the jail and are suffering as a consequence. So I think there are a lot of civil rights issues that should be pursued, and I'm actually surprised it hasn't happened before. The guy you talked about that died. We got the guy with the veneers. He's the guy who's been putting fake veneers on people. He's in there. The alleged crime is, I guess, impersonating a dental professional or something.
Right.
And that puts you in that violent environment.
Right.
He'll be lucky if he survives.
Yeah, he will be, because he's not. I mean, if you want to talk about gang members, I mean, he's not. He's going to have to affiliate with himself just to. I
don't even want to think about what he might have to be doing to survive.
No, it's a horrible situation. And Ashley Merchant, who's been in this case and is in the other case dealing with the now soon to be President Trump again, has told us about this, that bond has been denied. It's denied automatically for everybody, and they sent people to, is it Cobb County or another county?
Cobb County is the adjacent county. That's where Jeffrey Williams was staying. He didn't have that the Rice Street hanging over his head, but he was still incarcerated.
Right. But they send them to there because there's not enough space in Rice, and everyone wants to get out of there. And all these defendants are supposed to be really hardened killers. They just want to get out of Rice. So, you felt for them. But now it seems to me that they have more than just feeling for them. That they have a lot of credibility. 6 people have been murdered at the jail since 2022. 2 stabbed to death by prison shanks that have become ubiquitous in Dale, and 2 beaten to death and strangled. Okay?
I mean, it's like a bad. Remember that show Oz? Remember the show Oz?
Yes, Oz, right.
These things are supposed to be like caricatures of real life, right? Exaggerations, things that would never really. That's what's going on at Rice. It's real, and it's deadly, and it's wrong. How could that continue to exist. I don't understand it.
Well, I guess people feel prisoners have no rights, but this is not. This is going back to the medieval ages. This is like, I mean, there's a, one of my dogs was named Jean Valjean after Les Miserables, right? And there was a play. Most people know there's a book.
One of my favorite plays, actually.
Yeah, it's one of.
I've seen it. I saw it in London. I saw it in New York. I saw it out in California. It's just such. The music is unbelievable. The story is massive. Anyway,
it's one of my. Can I just tell you? It's one of our favorite plays too. Michael and my favorite.
It's just so
play.
strong. It's so emotional. The music is powerful. Performances, it's great. I even watched. I think it was on PBS. They had, and I ain't no PBS guy generally. Sorry, but they had like a stage version of it. Did you see that? I don't mean stage like a play, but it was almost like a concert version of
of Les Miserables.
Yeah,
with the original cast. He was
exactly.
The original cast.
What's his name?
Right. I don't remember him. I don't remember his name. I may remember him, but I don't remember his name. But he was great, and I cry every time that they bring the priest brings the candelabras or gives him I give the candelabras to him, because it just shows forgiveness. It shows. I mean, he was in there for stealing a loaf of bread because he was hungry, and that's what we're talking. We're talking about these basic things that I can't even imagine, Michael. I can't imagine reading, and I haven't read the report. I just read the reports of
the reports. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thank you. I thank you, The Guardian, George Chidi, who's in Atlanta, CHIDI, who wrote this article that I'm relying on tonight.
I'm
really was.
I think it needs to be further
incredible.
Exposed.
Yeah, and that does link to the 91-page report. It's just that with you being on the road today in New York and the Penny trial, I didn't really have time to read it. Also, I had a federal court brief that's now due in 10 days. So just
that damn law practice, it's getting in the way. Monday all day I'm in court, so I'm screwed. I can't go back into Penny on Monday, and I'm starting to think the way this is moving forward. The original plan. I'm sorry, I'm drifting into Penny here. They were going to get done by the 9th of December. It won't take that long. I mean, the ME is, as you know, quite often the crescendo.
Right.
And I've got notes on all of that. We'll get to that in a moment, though.
So I think that was basically what happened today. They're going to review evidence tomorrow. The lawyers is going to be a closed courtroom type day.
Right.
She's not going to be open. She said, "Text me if there's a problem."
Yeah, but I don't want to come down. I saw the end of that because they were in court till about 5:30,
5:20, 5:30.
Yeah.
And she was when I started shades of like some of my trials when I come back and I hear 385 VV, 485 VV. You've gone through all this evidence, and then you have to go back and look, and you have to make your objections and make sure that it's all right. And it really. It's a tough day. It's really a hard day for the attorneys, but it is
hard work. Yeah,
it's hard work. People don't realize how hard it is, but I think that they probably have they're getting their closings order. I'm sure the reason why Miss Love has not been in the courtroom is
working on her closing.
Oh, because we're going to hear that indictment read again, all over again, and it's going to be very, very.
I reached out to Doug today for two reasons: to confirm that Viverito. Did I get it right this time? That's
close.
That she would be the last witness. Not sure she'd finish today. That'd be surprising because they had so many exhibits connected to her, not counting her.
Yeah, she's gonna go Monday. The judge at the end said she made a mistake by not making it tomorrow, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. So I think we'll get Doug tomorrow is the bottom line. I think we should be able to get him and get an update on what's going on and maybe a sneak peek into what the defense case is, if any.
If any, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Sometimes we've talked about this. It's risky, but sometimes, as I call it, the hands in pocket defense sometimes are the best if the prosecution's totally bungled it, and you've gotten in your points on cross-examination.
Yeah. Although they may be interesting to see what they put anybody on that's not their clients. But quite frankly, I mean, Doug can sit back, in my opinion, unless you think that you're going to catch these guys, you're going to have Yak Gotti in this basket of RICO crimes because he may be a YSL gang member. Therefore, he's responsible for all these crimes that they could have gotten convictions on some of these murder cases, I think, if they had tried them individually. But not against the people that actually did the murder. That would be novel, right?
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, that would be really novel.
And a lot of the other stuff, is past the statute of limitations. Only the murder really extends forever. So they're using these as these overt acts, right? Because those are used to support the furtherance of the conspiracy under the RICO charges. So they're dragging. That's where they had, remember early on, marijuana possession. All these one joint. Because even though that in and of itself doesn't sound like much, it could be an overt act furthering the conspiracy. So
yeah, and that's it. So Doug can sit back now and say, let's see, we've been here for how many days? Just the two of us. Let's see, let's count the ways. Go to your pants right now and count the ways. My client has been mentioned. Okay, somebody knew him for maybe 2 or 3 years. That's it. There we go.
This witness, no mention. This witness, no mention. This witness, no mention. This, you could tick them off.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Fani being reelected DA, we predicted it. We saw the numbers ahead of time. It's no surprise. I want to make sure I don't totally mess this up. Olufemi Dakin. Is that Dakin? I'm sorry, I tried. But I appreciate that because you're right. That's it's unfortunate. That could have been maybe a step in the right direction.
Right.
And it's not even because I knew the opponent had better views, different views. We knew that she said we're going to end this case. That's all we knew, and that was enough for me. But her long-term plan for the DA's office, had she won, I really don't know.
I don't know. We know Judge Whitaker will probably go to the Georgia Supreme Court for just finishing this case with a degree of respectability, and having Jeffrey Williams kind of agree with her. Thank you for fairness on that. Him breaking up, saying that was beyond a moment that should be replayed. So we know where she's going. Where Judge Glanville's going, I don't know. We haven't really heard anything about him.
How about retirement?
Where his love is going. She can say, just like Fani, I got convictions here. We got convictions. Oh, look at this. Is it bittersweets? Bittersweets. Okay. I wrote a letter to the Judicial Qualifications Committee. Good for you if you think that something is wrong. We don't speak up enough in this country, but Judge Glanville doesn't serve on this case. Well, he did.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, obviously it's a non-answer, but it's nice that you try to hold their feet to the fire.
Yes.
Do something.
Be
aware that people know what's going on.
Yeah. So that's really. So that was kind of. It was a day that was having Viverito, who, again, as you point out, she's in the leaked video that the prosecution allegedly leaked of little Woody, right? And she's there the whole time. People have seen her the whole time. She's on their pages. She's given the promotion pages, and yet you don't show her in court. Now, there could be an argument that maybe if you show her in court, it gets people, all rifled up. And if she's, researching gangs, that they'll go after her or her family. And you don't want that to happen. But they can just Google her. They're on social media.
And you can do that?
Yeah, Google.
There it is. I've just doxed her.
I said to a private
that's the
investigator.
Judge. Sorry, that's the judge. I had the wrong picture up.
I just sent a letter to a private investigator who was trying to interview me, of all things, about my Jets tickets. Okay, all right, I'm gonna put this on. Right, I kid you not. Came to my condo. Came to where my office is. I wasn't there. My husband was up there. They called up because we have a secured building. Called up a major firm and wants to interview me about a fight that may have occurred near my seats. Now, the name of on the seats is both Michael and me. Why he singled out the female, I don't know. But I maybe have been a mistake when the first thing to him is my letter to him say, Google is your friend. You can find me. How about Googling me? Here's my stationery. Law office of LindaKennyBodden.com,
So that's the first part of the story. Then what happened?
I have not heard back. Okay. I'm waiting because I said, and that my next step is now sending my letter to the legal advisor of the New York Jets. So you can tag hashtag New York Jets when you put this on. The legal counsel of the New York Jets say, okay, this should not be done. This should not be done. Why don't you call me, since I happen to have 4 of your biggest seats on the 50-yard line in the house, and I don't appreciate this. And you should never send a private investigator on a day off to somebody's house, especially if she's female, right? It is just something that is not done. So, what can I say? But, I have my own way of doing things.
You drifted off into Karen status there for just a minute.
Well, I kind of drifted off into a lawyer status. I kind of was like, I was going to call you to write the letter for me, but I said, Michael's going to be like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, that's interesting. I think it's interesting that they would investigate it to that degree. That's actually kind of impressive that they do that.
I'm surprised anybody was in the seats having a fight or watching the game.
Yeah, that's a different story. The way the Jets play is a crime. It may be felony. I'm not sure.
We've only been to 2 games this year, and we tend to leave at halftime. And okay, I've been here, done that. Although last year I was on the Jumbotron. It's not really called the Jumbotron because I wore green lipstick. Right? I guess they thought that was like appropriate. I don't know. Appropriate for what? Sadness? I don't know. Anyhow. I did drift off there, but
so tell me, where are we then? If the state finishes Monday, and we'll find out from Doug whether or not there's much, if any, of a defense case to be put on. I mean, the jury could have this case by Thanksgiving for sure, right?
And a verdict, right? And a verdict. I mean, it depends on whether the judge puts time limits. I don't remember if she put time limits on the openings, but she should put time.
So long ago, I can't remember.
I can't remember either, because Ms. Love is going to take a whole day. Her plea
if she can, that's now we're going to see a very interesting difference between Glanville and Whitaker, because Glanville was involved in the opening statements. Now we have Whitaker for the closing arguments. She may clamp it down. She may say, you got 2 hours, knock yourself out.
Right. I don't know. And to me, this case is like, this jury is like they've been sequestered, right? They've been there for so long. They don't have to be sequestered. They know what they're going to do. It doesn't matter how many counts you have. They've made up their mind. I can't see them convicting, knowing everybody else is out, but they may feel, well, maybe we should convict on one little minor thing because Judge Whitaker's, they probably know that probation has been given and she's going to give them probation. So,
that's true too. That's true. And, we went through the charges still pending. And as for Diamante Kendrick, he's only got 2 things. He's got the RICO and gang activity / murder. I mean, so there's not really much to play with there. You're either going to ding him or you're not. Whereas Shannon Stillwell, there are about 8 charges, and they vary dramatically. Much lesser charges are pending against him, whereas it seems to be all or nothing really against Gotti.
Right.
But you're right. She could still, if RICO is 5 to 20, she could give the minimum, suspend part of it, time served for the rest, and probation, and have a nice day.
See, go along. And you're right. Missy points out the judge even said, let's wrap this thing up so we can start the appeals. I love that. I love that. I love it. Thank you, Jerome. People always think I'm very staid because they see me in trials and all, and it can be very staid. But behind the scenes, I got to keep everybody going. As a matter of fact, a little aside, when I'm in a trial team, people call me mom. And you'll see that if you read any of the books, Jose Baez's book, and then we all call Linda mom because it kind of make everybody laugh, have fun, and then make them work too. I mean, you don't want to get on the wrong side of me in a trial. But that's it. Oh, look at that! Like O'Brien's laughing. I love you. I love you, my pod partner.
Yeah, we it's funny when we did all the law and crime stuff. You never really see one another. You just you share a space, but not at the same time. So it's weird. It's very weird because I think they missed an opportunity there to have more interaction between the hosts, either in talking about cases or whatever, giving some sort of analytical classroom type opportunities to viewers. I think they missed out on that. I think to isolate us like they did, where we never even had like a handoff, like, hey, how you doing? You got the rest of this case as I leave for the afternoon. Good luck, have fun. It was just very, I don't know. I don't think separating everybody was the best way to go. But what do I know?
What do we know? We're kind of glad that they decided not to have any host activity because we're here with you and we can kind of be our own personalities and we can say things that we couldn't say on the air at Law and Crime because we were kind of like in a box. All right. But now, you have us raw, unfiltered, whatever it is you want to call it. We're here. We're
for better or worse, as I say.
For better or for worse.
Better or worse.
Yes. Oh, wow. The state added an enhancement for Doug's client. I didn't realize that.
What happened?
Someone, Bittersweet, said the state added an enhancement for Doug's client. So we'll have to ask Doug about that tomorrow night when we have him on. I can't wait to have Doug back. I look forward to having Doug here.
I mean, he's got a front row seat, and really in a way that's best because he's kind of in the passenger seat. He's not driving the car. And that's kind of good.
He's also a dandy, and I say that lovingly because he loves clothes. You see, like his glasses will match his shirt. The other day, he didn't have a tie on. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was in like
I think he was going to a concert. He was going to an Allman Brothers concert, as I recall.
Thank you, Bittersweets. We love doing it too. Yeah, he was, and he's got the glasses, and I say this even when he's on. He started. I hope we pushed him into it. His own accounts. He's on Twitter, right? And he does these little things and TikToks, little things like very short, nice 30 seconds, and they're not about the case all the time. Most times they're not. They're about life. And he's really got a great view on life, and for somebody who's been in a trial for like almost 2 years, he's really got a great view. That's all I can tell you. Yeah.
Yep. So I will reach out to him again as soon as we're done and just confirm what might be happening because they are having their non-court day tomorrow. Should be kind of flexible if we can get them on live. Certainly, we like to do that, but if not, we'll record something and drop it a little bit after that.
Yeah. So if you have questions for him, tweet them at us so that we can ask him, or send them to Michael on our Gmail at Justice Serve TV.
Yeah. What is it? MJB Bryant and Bodden at Gmail. That
right.
will work. That one works.
That'll work. Eventually, we'll get it to plain Justice Serve. But
I had one once. I think it was info at Justice Serve TV, and I think I let it die or something.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's besides you're handling. Now I kind of like the personal. I like when people like email you. Except for I don't like it when they come see you at your house
Speaking of that, we have the membership thing now, which has just begun, but we're also crafting some special type of membership stuff, which will allow some very personal one-on-one communication time, which we think might be interesting. Maybe it won't be. Maybe people have no interest in that. But we think it might be interesting, and so we're toying with how to make that available to folks. So
well, I'll just tell you that my husband Michael and I do that at Crime Con, where people get 5 minutes with us, and they pay prime. It goes to different charities and different funds, and it's very successful because you get to ask personal questions. Now you can ask personal questions here too, I think, in part of the membership, but. Dizzy knows all about that. Missy knows all about that. We're just kind of like the hosts.
Yeah, just kind of like I heard that to get some, if you wanted 5 minutes with me, it was $5. If you wanted 2 minutes with me, it was $10. You paid more to spend less time with me. Is that all right? Then that seems to be appropriate.
I have to ask your wife on that.
No, that would be bad. That would be a bad review. Okay, so are we SNL'd out? Are we YSL'd out?
Well, we're never YSL'd out, but I think we should talk about Daniel Penny because it is a really important case, and a lot happens today in the courtroom. And you were there. You're the camera. You're the camera for Justice Serve TV.
Yeah, I was a little out of focus at times, but I was definitely, yeah. So let's talk about where we are with that case. Yesterday, as you may recall, of course, they were off yesterday. The last time in court was Tuesday. And they were still doing precipient witnesses, some first responders, and now they've gotten to some of the, not really experts per se, but those with some special knowledge that were not there that day, May 1st, 2023. The first witness on the stand was the Marine trainer. Remember, Daniel Penny, former Marine, really didn't get out too long ago. I think it was in 22 that he got out. Was there from 2017 to 21-ish, and then into 22, and he got out, did some time in the Mediterranean, did some time in Kuwait, and then, decided 4 years was plenty for him. So on the stand was Marine trainer Joseph Kabaler, and he actually, not just generic Marine trainer, he trained Daniel Penny. So obviously the issue was the chokehold, which is a staple really in military training. So the question really became, what kind of hold was it? Was it designed to restrain Mr. Neely, or was it designed to choke him out, right? So that was, and the name, of course, of the chokehold that is the most deadly it's a great name. It's called the blood choke. It's just a very visual name.
Right. So, aren't the Marines trained killers? Aren't they trained to kill?
Well, I think you could argue most military soldiers in whatever branch are, they're trained to kill you. So this was interesting because the bottom line from this trainer was basically that on that day, Daniel Penny did the chokehold wrong. He didn't do it the way you should do it, which sort of helps the defense. So let me give you some of the high points here. He said,
doesn't it help? Wait, it doesn't help the state because he's engaging in something and then he does it wrong?
Well, you know, again, if he does something less deadly, isn't that helpful to the defense?
Oh, is that what you say? When he said he did it wrong,
when he did it wrong, it was less deadly. And here's
I
why.
see. Okay.
And I was talking to, and for folks who didn't see it, we dropped the Joseph Scott Morgan episode earlier today, where he, as the forensic death investigator extraordinaire, talks about, you know, what's important to determine this chokehold. Was it for restraint? Was it for debilitation? Was it to kill? And a lot of the evidence that came in today relates back to what Joseph had to say about, you know, those important elements. And so check that out when you get a chance. So anyway, he's talking about this blood choke. Key difference was, remember how we were talking about, and I can show you the video, but we've seen it plenty. You know, he has his arm like this, and then he has his hand up on the head.
Right.
That choke, and it's also called, I think it's called a 4-point choke. It's also, you're supposed to have your hand behind the head. And why is that? Because if you're pushing the head forward, you're pushing it deeper into the cradle of the arm of the person holding the in this case, the ultimate victim. Because Daniel Penny's hand was on the top of Jordan Neely's head, it really was not an effective blood choke. Okay.
That's the more serious one. That's the one that's designed
That's the
to
one
kill?
that's more likely to put you out. Okay.
Is it designed to kill or designed to just put you out?
I think it's a matter of degree. Ultimately, to debilitate somebody, that means to put them out. And they're supposed to go out between 8 and 13 seconds. And, you know, Dr. Michael Bodden, we've talked about this before. We've talked about it with Joseph Scott.
10 seconds, right.
It's 8 to 13 seconds if it's truly the properly applied blood choke, right? Well, we know from the video, it was at least 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes before Neely was out, unconscious. So what does that mean? Does that mean that Daniel Penny really was just trying to restrain him for that period of time? That's what it sounds like, because he certainly didn't go out. And this trainer was talking about, I thought was interesting. He's talking about, if you look at the video, Daniel Penny's kind of looking around the car quite often. And that probably relates to his interpretation, his perception that people in the car were afraid, and he was stepping up to, you know, stop the threat. But for this witness, it was evidence that he was not focused on choking this guy lethally, because his attention was elsewhere. He wasn't focused. I thought that was an interesting take on it. If he had been more focused, then, you know, his eyes would not have been off of Mr. Neely. The choke would have been more intense. Pressure is the key word here. There would be more pressure. And because he was not focused just on that task, he felt that it was not a lethal choke. Remember, this is the prosecution witness, but very important for this jury to figure this out. So if it's not a blood choke, what is it? It's an air choke. An air choke. Okay?
That still sounds pretty awful, because
yeah, I
don't want my air if we take it away by a choke.
What's interesting, that is not trained by the Marines. They don't train the air choke. They only train the blood choke. Okay. So, and one of the points he made was, even if you can somehow constrict the trachea, you can do that without totally cutting off air. So he was unable to say, by looking at the video, what the level of pressure was that was being applied by Daniel Penny to Jordan Neely's neck. In that way, it's kind of a meh. I mean, what's that do for you?
What's the difference if he still dies at the end of the pressure,
yes,
or because of it, or precipitates him dying in some way? Yeah,
correct. And that brings in the whole, you know, drug in the system issue, and I think he had sickle cell anemia. There, you know, all these other factors that the defense is certainly going to focus on. So that was him, and I think pretty important for the reasons that he was the guy that trained the defendant, and the defendant wasn't doing the chokehold correctly. See what the jury does with that. The other witness, or first one in the afternoon, was Detective Brian McCarthy. Now, this name may come back because when Penny was at the police station, he met with 2 detectives. And the first couple of days of trial, this Detective McCarthy was somehow missing. And it sounded like the prosecution was never going to put him on the stand. Maybe they thought better of it when it seemed like a gaping hole, because this guy spent time with the defendant.
Right.
And remember, the defendant volunteered to go talk to the cops. They didn't go arrest him. They just responded when he said, you know, you want me to come down and talk about this? And they said, oh, okay. So he does. And so we saw the video interview of Daniel Penny on that day. He was only really talked to for it was maybe an hour at the most, 2 different detectives. And this may be, I was asked by a reporter for The Sun, they took a few quotes for an article they're doing on this case. And I said,
"You're gonna be famous?"
Yeah, right. I said, you know, I still think at this point in the process, there's probably a 50-50 chance that Penny takes the stand. And I say that because the jury has now at least heard him, you know, in
Right.
his interrogation setting
Right.
or really
Right.
interview setting. Very loose, didn't seem concerned, you know, like, am I under suspicion here? Very forthcoming. He said, let me just hit some of the high points here. When this detective, he's been with the NYPD for 19 years, right?
Right.
He walks into the interview room. Penny's already in there with Detective Medina. So they're chatting, talking about the Marines, talking about, I think Medina had been in the Marines or he knew others that were. So they were just kind of you know, small talking. The defense, of course, said that was an attempt to soften him up because that was all pre-Miranda, right? So they do that. But he's super loose. He wanted to talk to the cops. There was nothing he seemed to be trying to hide. Here's what Penny heard from the victim. And this is critical because this would be what he responded to, right? Quote, I'm going to kill everyone, end quote. Quote, I don't care if I go to prison, end quote, which we've heard from many witnesses. And he described Neely as acting as a, quote, crazy person, end quote. He mentions the windbreaker being thrown, in his opinion, at another rider. Not so much at the ground, but at another rider on the subway. And initially, Penny said, I really wasn't paying attention. It was just, he was just like, you know, how did he describe him? Quote, just a crackhead, you know, end quote. Spoken like somebody who's been on the subway before
Right.
many times. And you always see kooky people. But at some point, this became more than that. And it comes down to some of the things he heard, which again was, I'm going to kill everyone. And remember the woman with the kid in the stroller or near the stroller? She was like, I had a 5-year-old. I'm thinking, 5-year-old in a stroller? How big is your 5-year-old? But she had the kid and the stroller, and she was using the stroller sort of as a shield between herself, her child, and Neely. And this plays out in front of Daniel Penny. He says, quote, I'm not trying to kill the guy, end quote. Quote, I was not trying to injure him. He was threatening people, end quote. And he talks about, which is very interesting if you look at the video with this in mind, he talks about releasing and increasing pressure as Neely would have what he called a burst of energy. So
I was trying to breathe.
For whatever reason. So he said he was choking him. I always get the wrong arm. He was choking him, and he would release that pressure as the squirming is how he described it. The squirming would subside. But if he had a burst of energy and again started squirming, flailing his arms, then he would tighten the pressure. That again, this is Penny's question and answer with the cops. Okay. And then there was an interesting moment. This is more procedural, more into the weeds here, but that's what we do. There was a question by the cross examination about you know what a DD5 is in New York? That's basically the investigative reports that are done by the cops, interviews. They call them the DD5. Well, at some point,
you don't get them a lot of times. You used to not get them until the last.
Yes, well, you'll appreciate this then. There was a question about something contained on the DD5 brought up by cross-examination, and they threw the front page of the DD5 up on the big screen, like for about 5 seconds until the judge said, "Hey, whoa, get that off of there! You can't show that." I was trying to pick interesting info off of it, but it was up and then gone so quickly. But the jury had to say, "Whoa, that's weird."
That's weird, right?
That would be shown, and then obviously we're not supposed to see it. So I thought that was interesting. Let's see, and then another, this Judge Wiley, in general, very efficient. I think he seems to be in control of the courtroom, but he's very quick in deciding to overrule quite often objections. The defense was trying to question with this detective an inconsistency with one of the former witnesses, Mr. Clay, Derek Clay. Derek Clay, you may recall, is the guy that said one of his first thoughts was, I wonder if Jordan Neely has something in his pockets. Okay, just like I'm concerned. But when he testified, he didn't say that. He basically said, no, I don't remember that. So, of course, they had to bring up the statement he made to the cops and show that it was a prior inconsistent statement and correct him. And, whether the jury sees that as bias or some other reason to change his testimony, who knows? But on cross of this detective, they wanted to bring that up because the detective was relying on the statements from the witnesses, right? The judge said, no, objection sustained, and counsel, and it wasn't Kenneth, it was the other guy, Razor. I always forget his name.
Co-counsel, it's okay.
Yeah, it's co-counsel. I think his name's Razor. Anyway, he said, well, Judge, I want to be heard on this. Nope. Moving on. We're moving on. So he did, and you could tell it really cut short his cross-examination. So he gets done. The detective is excused. The jury disappears. Then he makes a record, and the judge says, after he makes his argument, the judge says, yeah, you're right. I kind of forgot about that. Can we get the detective? Is he still here? Is he still here somewhere? Can we get him? So they had to bring the jury back in after the break, bring the detective back in for that one question, because the judge was so quick to
instead of going to sidebars, which they don't like in the
So I think, from the defense standpoint, it kind of highlights that very small part of
the point. Right. Yeah, you're coming back to
yes,
but they don't know how it got there. They don't know how it.
No, it just would be odd. Why is he coming back to make that particular comment?
Or they could think that the attorney forgot to ask it, and instead of you never know what juries are thinking when you.
Of course.
But Dizzy asked, so a question before, how can you assert an affirmative defense, which this is self-defense of others, without taking the stand? And I would point out, there was a case, Trayvon Martin, remember?
Yes.
And the defendant whose charge was what? George, how soon we forget. Come on, you guys, all right? And he didn't take the stand. The reason why he didn't take the stand on the self-defense is because the prosecution put in his statement that he'd given to the police. So the statement got in, you didn't have to then put him on the stand. You'd have to put him on because everything was in as to why he made the decisions, and he did subject to cross-examination. So by putting in the statement, you don't really have to then put the defendant on the stand. They can still use an affirmative self-defense. And I think that's, if he doesn't go on the stand here, that's what you're gonna hear.
Well, yeah, we heard the statement today, basically. And what makes this slightly different, because defense of others is kind of
Zimmerman. Thank you, George Zimmerman. Thank you, John Whalen. Thank you.
His corollary defense is self-defense and defense of others. All the others, or many of them, have already testified. So they can create for the jury the impression that he was acting on their behalf, right? Without him testifying, because he can't really say, he can say what he saw and what he felt. But if they can support that by saying, I was threatened, I knew this was different, I knew this was dangerous, and I'm glad he stepped in, that's great for him. And he doesn't have to reinforce that taking the stand. So that's why I still say it's a 50-50 shot. If they think the prosecution's case has been weaker, that his statement made is strong, and that the statements of all the recipient witnesses support his defense, then they don't, then maybe he doesn't take the stand.
But doesn't it come down to the video? And then we ask viewers this because, I mean, None Nanette says, can anyone say they wouldn't actively try to get out of a chokehold? That's exactly what you can't breathe, and even if you're not saying you can't breathe, you're trying to get away. You're trying to get away.
Let me throw this out to react to this, viewers and LKB. In the video, Neely never. Now remember, there was a period of time where a couple other guys were trying to grab his arms. Remember that? But never, when he had the ability, did he reach up to try and take his arm away from his throat. Don't you think that's weird?
Well,
wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, or you're just trying to get around it. You're just trying to get around it. Sure, if you're being strangled.
I mean, the first thing, I'm grabbing the guy's arm. I'm going to whatever's choking me. I'm trying to get it off me.
But remember, people were grabbing his arms too, Neely's arms also. I mean, he was kind of being subdued in all ways.
And they do have.
think it's the length of I think it's this. I think
well, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
I think the issue is going to be for the jury, the length and the fact he didn't render assistance. That's going to be the two issues, I think. And if they find that, you may have some people that say, okay, it's manslaughter or it's just criminal negligence, whatever it is. He didn't mean to kill him, but it's one of the two because of those. And that's, I think, the case comes down. I don't want to be on the jury, by the way.
Well, I don't think you're going to be. But
never. No one's ever putting me on jury.
When we were talking to Joseph, and he was asking about the legs being wrapped around, which is all part of the Marine training, and in fact happened in this case. Mr. Neely had his own legs kind of wrapped like crab-like, by Daniel Penny. So he's got the chokehold up above, and he's got the legs wrapped down below. I mean, that's the classic training, and so that was in fact what was happening. So
we'll see. You'll see, but I think it does come down to, what do you think about the length of the video? Just talk about the length.
You mean the video itself, or the
length of the length of the? Well, the incident, we know he lets him go. Supposedly he's got a pulse. 21 minutes later, the EMTs arrive, but the length of the hold.
Yeah, well, no, I think that's a huge issue. It was 5 minutes 53 seconds to 6 minutes 23 seconds, somewhere in there, and Penny did not release Neely until that time period ended. So if the jury believes that Mr. Neely was either unconscious, perhaps dead, however you want to look at it, no longer a threat, if he was a threat, then they're going to say, well, what the hell are you doing, holding that choke for that long? You had to have something more in mind than just restraining him.
Oh, good question. I'm throwing this to Michael Bryant. Missy Mayhem, did he have PTSD issues? That's why she was one of our early guests, Missy. And all of you can write in, because we try to do shows. We've been so bombarded with live shows recently. Try to get
I know our Q&A stuff. We haven't had a real Q&A in a while.
A real Q&A. But did you have PTSD issues from the military? And would you know about them, Mike?
It hasn't come into evidence yet. I can imagine if there is a defense, it would certainly be part of their defense. But I don't, I haven't seen that talked about. I haven't seen it even speculated about. So I do have one more thing. I forgot about this. The medical examiner, again, Joseph Scott Morgan, who we spoke to, was like, I can't wait to hear from the medical examiner. Remember some of the things he talked about? He talked about whether there was crushing to the cartilage of the neck. And he also talked about what to the eyes? What is it?
Petechial hemorrhages.
Yeah, exactly. So let me give you a couple of tidbits from the examiner, Dr. Harris. Who,
by the way, it just started today, right? Just started when you
started today. But and we were talking about this before we went on. Quite often with the ME, you want to throw the headline out there first. Do you have an opinion about the ultimate cause of death? Yes, I think it was blah, blah, blah. And then you back into that with all of the evidence and the support material that you relied on to get there. That way the jury doesn't have to sit there waiting, wondering where you're going. What's the, don't bury the headline. So this witness was asked right up, very, very near the top, what was the cause of death? And the doctor said, quote, compression of the neck. Okay. So compression of the neck. Now, I don't know if that means arteries, windpipe. I don't know. That was the short answer. So then she goes through some diagrams of the neck. She's talking about there were some bruises, some scrapes, things of that sort. Let me hit some of the high points here as well. She was looking for other signs of injury, both internal and external. Neely was 6'1", 165, so clearly a lean dude, but almost exactly the same height and weight as Daniel Penny. Interestingly, almost exactly. He had signs of resuscitative efforts. That was because the EMTs were working on him, paramedics were working on him. But here it is. He had petechia in the eyes, and she described it, as we all know, as small pools of blood from ruptured blood vessels. So that was there. And what did Joseph Scott Morgan say about that? He said to him, that's more indicative of a strangulation, right? A choke. Had signs of trauma in the form of hemorrhaging in his neck. We
talked about that. You watched our episode yesterday. That's exactly it. That's what just Scott Morgan was looking at, that especially if the whole neck had hemorrhages and signs of hemorrhaging in it, that to him, that was not a good thing for Penny.
Yeah. And this is something that we did not talk about. I'm not sure what it means. Maybe we'll learn more. But he had his spleen was abnormal in that it had a speckled appearance. I don't know if that's related to some other long-term condition. Maybe it's because they talk about a sickly state. Remember, I said there was some sickle cell anemia that may attack the spleen. I can't remember, to be honest. It's been a while since I've looked into that. Let's see. Compression of the neck falls under the category of asphyxial death. Problem refers to having trouble getting oxygen to the body. So, that's the bottom line from this witness. She'll go into some greater detail. She did the autopsy. This is not just, she didn't just read the reports and come to a conclusion. She did the autopsy. So Dr. Harris will be back on the stand tomorrow.
Well, a lot going on here, Michael Bryant. We have a lot to talk about, and continuing on to tomorrow night. I'm sure we'll be talking more Neely. We're going to be talking YSL with Doug, and maybe we'll have another special guest on yet to be seen for Friday at night. So a lot going on, Michael. Do you have to stay with us? We've had a lot of chatters, and we want you to come back and chat more, because we'll look at your comments. We'll try to answer more. Get a membership. All right. We just started. We're trying to feel out what that means too. So,
that's right. All right. Well, we appreciate all the folks showing up and chatting and joining us. So,
yeah, thank you.
Yep. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. And together we are Justice Served TV. We'd like you to like, subscribe, notify, share.